Hello and welcome to the Lenko Show. I've tried different intro this week, Chris, because I've realized like whenever I record this, I go yo yo yo, and it's the same sort of like I need a change. I need a change.
Yeah, I like it. I just wanted to say that I can see that fly buzzing around your room.
It's doing my head
It's
in.
a big way.
It's doing my head in. If I lose my shit at any point, or if you're watching on YouTube and I start slapping around wildly, you'll know why I'm trying to punch a fly in the face. Um, well, what can we say? The Euros have started. We've kicked off. We're over the first round of matches now. What have you made of it so far?
What have I made of it? I put this in the Team Lenko group. Um, England, I actually quite like the squad that we've got. I don't think it's perfect and I don't think we're amazing, but I quite like a lot of the players anyway. And I just think we're average. I really do just think that we're average. I think as everyone's been up Jude Bellingham's ass from that one game, I thought he was okay. Like they said that he was everywhere. All right, he got a bit giddy and gave the ball away a few times though. So there was one part where he did a nice turn. He got fouled. He did a nice turn. The other team kind of stopped, and so he ran away from a player, and he got giddy because he's a young lad, and he gave the ball away. He got a foul, but it wasn't amazing. And I said this, so this is what I put in the group. So for everyone listening, I feel like watching England is like watching on slow-mo. We're just not quick. At least when I watched it, I didn't think it was slow. But then when I've watched all the other games, I'm thinking, holy shit, because England are significantly slower. We have been slowing the game down, and other teams are moving the ball about quickly. And I think that's all we need to do. I think with the forward players that we've got, the offensive players that we've got, that's exactly what we should do. And I think we'd be killers. I think we'd be absolutely amazing if we do that. But I'm scared that we don't have it in us, especially under Southgate. What do you think?
So the one reason that we won't win the tournament is quite simply it's Gareth Southgate. He cost us the tournament when we had it here in Wembley, like the final against Italy. Like he cost us the tournament then. He didn't make a change when he should have done, and like I think he gets a lot right in terms of the way he manages the group, but in terms of his actual tactical capabilities as a manager, I was terrified when his name was thrown into the ring for the Man United job. I was absolutely bricking myself because he hasn't got it in him to change the game. I mean, going back to the final where we got beat by Italy on penalties, I would have actually found it quite funny if the ball hadn't have gone out of play and he couldn't make those substitutions before the penalties because it would have served him right because those substitutions bringing on those fresh legs and giving them a chance to influence the game and get a touch of the ball before a penalty shootout before the biggest kick of their lives in a major tournament would have made a massive difference. And I don't think he's got it in him to influence the game in a positive manner. I really don't understand the Trent experiment in midfield. I have no idea what that is all about.
I get it. I do get that because obviously he's pretty good. He's just clearly not a midfielder. So, but the thing is, another thing I think quite often you find that players at the international level are being played out of positions as to what they would be played in at club level. Do you find that?
I think we do it quite a lot. Don't know about
No,
don't know about the other countries, but I know that we definitely seem to do it.
talking to someone the other day. We used to have Scholes on left mid.
Yeah,
Not as a, I mean, he was on the wing, but not like as a forward winger. Left midfield.
yeah.
Like Scholes was that good, but what are you doing?
Well,
What are we
again,
doing?
it's the ability to actually choose like one of your two best players and then put in someone else to complement around them. Like I think this squad's probably got a better balance to it where you've got two really, really good midfielders in Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham. You're gonna have them in your team and they can work with each other. The problem is, can you leave Declan Rice in that holding role on his own? Probably not. And I would suggest that Trent is not the defender to have alongside him. I
No.
simply wouldn't do that. I think Kobe Mainu must be sitting on the bench thinking, what the hell is going on here? Like, I've had a really good season, won a cup. played in the cup final, played in a struggling team, and actually stood out. Really good form. And here I am, sat on the bench behind a right back, playing in my position. For me, that's
Yeah.
quite astonishing. And whether or not it's like, do you trust him in a big tournament? Do you trust him in those key moments? He's got a better sense of the position and where he is on the pitch and what's going on around him than Trent has in that situation. Um,
Yeah.
and I,
And not only that, but I would also say that that's the time to play him. Play him against a team like Serbia, like the opening game to qualifiers where he can actually get some legs in him and get used to playing in a bigger tournament. Other than like, let's say you were going to rest him in a bigger game like Denmark if you weren't sure if he could hold his own. But like we generally lose our openers anyway, and we generally build up and start getting, I guess, a little bit better as the tournament goes on. So surely it's better to.
I would say that, yeah. I think, like, obviously, if we'd have lost, everyone would be pulling their hair out. The tournament would already be over. There'd be people crying the streets, writing in pubs, and we'd already have burnt half of Germany to the ground. But we didn't play well. We won the first game. If we'd have played really well and battered them 4 or 5-0, everyone would be saying, "Oh, we don't want to peak too soon." And you just think, so it's one of those situations where you can't win. But overall, just taking it at face value, looking at all the games that have been played so far, that's the one game where I've actually been bored and not fully
Yeah.
watched. Like I actually pulled up my Kindle and started reading a little bit because I was just that kind of, and that's the other thing. How have we gone from, we've got players in the team that just blood and thunder, Premier League, week in, week out, up and down the pitch, box to box, chances, goals, everything. And all of a sudden we get into England and it's stagnant. It's just static. It's just like watching, and you might understand this. It's like watching Man United a few years back when we were really, really average. I mean, we're still average now, but I don't really know how to frame that, but to the point where actually watching the game was just genuinely boring. Like at the minute, we're bad, but before that, we were boring, so boring. Like it was like watching 11 dustbins just static, passing the ball to one another. No movement, no speed, no energy. And that it was a little bit towards that. So I'm hoping it will improve. But like as far as the actual tournament itself goes, absolutely class. There's been some seriously good goals as well.
Yeah, there has. I was a fan of the goal that Czech Republic scored yesterday um, against Portugal. That was
Oh,
beautiful.
wonderful hit.
What a
Wonderful.
finish.
Anyway, I feel like because we're in the first week of the tournament, you've had a chance to watch everyone play. We've got a feel for what teams are doing and where they are. On this podcast, right here, right now, who's your pick for the tournament?
Oh, no. I feel like I can't say anyone other than England, but do I really believe that? I don't think I do.
Then who?
Uh France.
Ooh, it's a strong shot. I'm not going to sit here and go, no, you're wrong.
Yeah.
I think, like you say, I think we've got it in us where we could win the tournament. Do I think we will? No, I don't. Again, for the reason I mentioned, we've got Gareth Southgate managing. I don't feel like he's got enough in him to be able to change the game, change the system, change the formation, and have the gumption to actually make the changes to potentially decide the match. Like, look at what Roberto Martinez did last night with Portugal, throwing on players at the last minute. Like, he's making changes through the game to try and push people forwards and get people in the right areas. And I don't think Southgate does that for us. My
I think one of the issues that we've got is we're trying to play really pretty football and score the world's greatest goals where every single player touches it like 3 times one touch. Whereas, so one thing that I thought with Portugal was it they were just obviously it was quick, like I said, but they were playing like they were actually trying to score. I don't feel like we do.
mm,
We play like we're trying to keep the ball and then score the world's prettiest goal.
I think part of that obviously Portugal, they've got Ronaldo, haven't they? If you keep working the ball wide, stretching teams, getting crosses into the box, you know that at some point he is going to do something.
Yeah.
I mean, he was offside for one that he assisted yesterday, that header off the post, but then he created a couple of little chances for himself on the half turn in the box that most strikers don't create. And this is the big irritation for me. I don't feel like Harry Kane does that.
No,
I don't
no.
feel like Harry Kane's on that level. I don't feel like he can do that. Can he finish? Absolutely. But can he create a chance for himself out of nothing? I don't know. We'll wait and see.
Boy, it's like
I'm
cannot
sure there's
stop.
plenty of people out there listening that go, of course he can. Absolutely, he can.
Well, I mean, so I'm sure he has the ability to, but does he actually do it is the question. Like where actually was he against Serbia? So I get it. Like Serbia, the
Yeah,
big
I
players,
know what you mean.
they're fit, they're strong, they're hard to break down. No, they're not. It's fucking Serbia. We're not playing against Germany. We're not playing against like one of the top international sides. I get it. They're better than me at football. All right. But with the players that we've got attacking, they can absolutely break them down easily.
Yeah, yeah,
But by playing smart football, not by trying to pass it around them at 2 miles an hour. If you're going to move the ball, move it quickly. If you're trying to tire them out, Christ.
yeah. Do you want to know my win for the tournament?
Yeah, go on.
I'm going with Germany.
Germany. See, that was the other one that I was thinking, and it's awful to say, isn't it? It feels wrong saying that.
Well, I'm quite pleased because they're in my sweepstake. I've already got them. It's fine. Um, and obviously the dog is German, so he counts. So me and him, we're supporting the Germans,
Yeah.
supporting England. Obviously, England comes first and foremost. Like this is something Fiona needs to understand. So she got Serbia in the sweepstake Sunday night after I'd been playing. We were watching the game together, and she's literally sat there shouting at the TV. She doesn't even like football. She doesn't even care. She hates it. She hates everyone that plays it. They're all overrated. They're all, narcissistic, egotistical, whatever's. But she sat there shouting, "Go on, Serbia! Come on, Serbia! Go on, Serbia!" And then every decision, like if there's a foul, God, ref, that's not a foul. And I was like, listen, Fiona, this is going to have to stop. This is going to have to stop. Like, if you stop now, I will. So, one of my other teams in the sweepstake is Spain. So, I was like, if you stop now, I will give you Spain. You can have Spain off me. And no, she didn't. So, she's loyal to her sweepstake to the very end, which is very unfortunate for her because the end could come quite swiftly. She's not got some very good teams.
Good quality to have, but it's not a good quality to have. So an interesting one for all the people listening. So Fiona's got names for all the Manchester United players, and I think at some point on one of the podcasts we should get Fiona to name all the England players. And when I say name them, I mean not their real names, different names,
Yeah,
nicknames, ever sort of thing. I think we should have that for definite.
so, like, just so people know, like that actually came around by accident. She just gets them name. She got their names mixed up originally, and then she just decided to stick with it. So as an example, Luke Shaw is actually called Uncertain, just because why not?
Yeah.
Um, what did she go with for? So Victor Lindelof, this was probably the one that actually initiated it all. She calls him Loftonberry.
Glastonbury, that's the one.
Phil
That's the
Jones. Phil Jones was another one that kind of kicked it off. Phil Jones got called Jordan Fishwick.
Oh yeah. Jordan Fisher.
And then,
What was Lingard called?
oh, I don't know. I can't remember Jesse Lingard. I can remember Jaden Sancho. Jaden Sancho was nacho cheese.
Oh yeah, yeah, nacho
Um,
cheese.
yeah, she had a couple of good ones in there. They're quite funny. Anyway, today I did promise in the last episode. I know we were going to talk about some other things related to how to improve athletic performance. We've got a few questions in on that, so we will go through that. But I think first and foremost, because I said we were going to talk about your process of being injured on the podcast last week as a youngster, at that kind of critical age for anyone that's thinking of going pro, and getting onto scholarships or apprenticeships and that kind of thing, to suffer a pretty severe injury at that critical time is a massive setback. And then the struggle and the problems that you had with the health service, getting through, getting an operation, getting yourself fixed, and then returning to play was a very, very lengthy process. There's one of my clients who she's got her knee busted up and she's had to wait for 2 surgeries. So similar sort of issue. And then I know a few people also who have very recently been quite severely injured, having to struggle through similar sort of things. So just take us through, like, take us back to what it was like for you back then, what you went through, and the impact it's had.
So I think my initial injury was I was 14 and I was playing a high school game that I actually wasn't meant to be playing in. I'd been asked like last minute and I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm just gonna rock up. And I got drop kicked in the side of the knee. That was the initial thing. It was an impact. I got drop kicked in the side of the knee. I could barely walk. To be fair, I was struggling to walk. I tried to carry on. I stayed on the pitch for maybe 2 minutes. Like I was just kind of limping around, and then I asked for the ball. The ball came towards me, not at me, but towards me. And you know how when you're moving and when you're in a game situation, there's a bit of adrenaline and stuff like that. I tried to move quickly to get to it, and I just knew there was something like very, very, very wrong with it. So I sat down and gave the old wait, wait, and they gave me the damp cloth and a sponge, and I was just like, "Oh my days, it's actually in agony right now, like it's killing." Um, so that was in Tottington. So I don't know distance wise if you can remember, Alex. I walked home from the football match, or rather limped home. It was probably so to that pitch, it was probably a 30-minute walk to get there from our school. It took me 3.5 hours to walk back to school because obviously I was living with mum and getting a lift was not on the cards, unfortunately. So I hobbled back and then one of my mates gave me a lift, um, who happened to be around school at that time. Gave me a lift back. And the following day, I didn't think I'd done anything too bad. Like nothing was out of place, nothing looked like overtly swollen or anything like that. But I couldn't really walk. I woke up the following morning and my leg was very, very much stuck in one position. I just couldn't really do anything with it. So I was like, oh shit, this is an issue. So I had to ring dad. I was like, yeah, I've got a bit of a problem. I got tackled last night and I can't really do anything with my leg. Not really sure what to do. So he whisked me into school, because he was a super dad like that. Got me in school. I went in, went about the day, limping around, blah blah. And someone got me some crutches, so I was able to actually get about. And I don't know if I kind of didn't really think much of it at that point, and I don't know why. I think I was probably because there was nothing physically wrong with it from looking at it. I think I just thought, well, it can't be so bad. But I got towards the end of that day. And I was like, honestly, it's like something's definitely, definitely, definitely wrong because I can't properly walk on it. So my dad took me, he picked me up and took me after school to get it checked out. Went to, I think it was Fairfield. Um, and we basically told him what had happened, blah, blah, blah. And they said, okay, we'll get someone to check it out who pressed it, like didn't really do anything with it, pressed it, said, yeah, you've sprained your knee. Um, we'll give you some crutches. Bearing in mind, I was there on crutches. So we'll give you some crutches. Um, wear this on it, and it'll be fine in a couple of weeks. Bear in mind, this was a long time ago, so this story is not going to be perfect. It's just what I think I remember. So I was around on crutches for a couple of weeks. Uh, Went back, and obviously, like you said, at that age, I was eager to be playing sport and doing things like that. And it was around the time of I was 14, I was going, maybe I was just turning 15, something like around GCSE time. So like not stressful, but you're thinking about what you're taking and what you're gonna be doing. And if you're doing GCSEP and stuff like that, you need to be able to actually do it. Um, I went back and they said they said it wasn't sprained. They said it was something else, but he said it'll be fine again in 2 weeks. But I'd give it another 2 weeks before you do anything. So bear in mind, I'd got what they'd given me was, the tubular thing. If you like sprain your wrist, not a cast, but like the sock thing that you'd put on it. Just gave me a compression sleeve to put around the actual knee joint itself. Uh, and like I said, I couldn't really bend it, couldn't really straighten it. It was agony. I definitely really couldn't really put weight through it. So yeah, I was on crutches.
Was there any X-ray, any MRI?
At that point, no. No, they diagnosed, said it was a sprained knee. It's probably going to be okay. I think it was because they literally looked at it. It did look okay, and they'd played around with the shield on the front, and were like, okay, yeah, this isn't really moving. So there's obviously been some response, but I think it's fine. Blah blah blah. Sprained knee, sent me off. I then just trusted him naturally because why wouldn't you? Gave it another 2 weeks on crutches and then was like, right, I can walk. Can I jog? So I tried to jog and it was, as you can imagine, pretty painful, but I was like, I can jog. So let's start here. And then kind of, I don't know if this comes from like our training background and stuff like that, but sort of is like, well, if I can do this, then I can try and do this next thing. Does that make sense? So I can jog. Let's try. Can I walk backwards? Can I sidestep? Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, a couple of weeks later, having not properly trained or done anything, I went to the gym every lunchtime at school, but I'd not played any football or badminton and all the other stuff that we used to play. And I'd obviously not sprinted and changed direction. Uh, I was walking to school and it just sort of, the only way to explain it is if, and this is a terrible visual example for people, but imagine my left fist is my tib and fib, and my right fist is like femur. It just felt like they'd both go opposite ways, and the knee would kind of shift around in the joint and then pull back. Does that make sense? So it felt like it'd slide across towards the inside of my knee. So my knee's facing the wrong way, and then it'd pull back as like a mechanical response to obviously not being where it was meant to be. And then it'd obviously lots of clicking and cracking, but then it would be really like radiate pain up the back of the knee for like half an hour to an hour after that. I would still be able to walk, but it would be stiffer. So it was like, okay, it's just gone from underneath me, kind of similar to like rolling your ankle. It's just gone from underneath me. It's created some kind of trauma. I can still do stuff like I don't feel like it's obviously not completely broken because I can still weight bear to a degree, but I certainly wouldn't run on it or do anything like that. So I went back and told them, and they were like, "Yeah, it's a sprained knee. You need to carry on like not doing anything for." I think at that point they said 2 months. So originally it was 2 weeks, then it was another 2 weeks, then it was 2 months. I was like, well, that's a bit of a predicament because I do this and I do this and I do this, which obviously at that stage was playing football through two different teams. Badminton, I got GCSEs coming up and kind of needed my legs. And then yeah, so they'd given me another 2 months, to which point my dad was obviously not happy, I think is the best way to describe it. And he was kind of the catalyst for everything that they did, if that makes sense. So I know like the NHS, I know a little bit more now coming out of it that they've got systems that they have to follow and procedures they have to follow. And it's like, okay, you have to go through this thing to get to this thing to get to this thing. But a lot of it was just nonsensical. And if it wasn't for my dad pressing on them, I would have never got through gate one. It would have just been, no, you've got a sprained knee, blah, blah, blah. So he was really, really driving on them. He was at them. Okay, you need to take a look at this. What about an x-ray? Blah, 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 blah. I think a month and a half went by, so it hadn't been the full 2 months. And obviously, I was just like so bored, not being able to run, not being able to do anything. And so I was jogging a little bit again just to see if I could, and it was fine. but there was noticeably something wrong with it because there was like big clicking and cracking, which I later found out was to most likely due to the meniscus, but it was across the front rather than across the back, whereas previously I've been struggling with the back. After that point, I still wasn't doing any sport or anything like that. I wasn't obviously training my legs at the gym either. I was kind of just still limping around, walking around. And I think one of the other important indicators that something was clearly wrong was every now and then, even just walking, something would go in my knee and it would have that same kind of stimulus response thing where it would like crack one way and then snap back the opposite way. And it kind of it was unclear as to what was really causing that. Sometimes it happened when I was walking. Sometimes it happened when I was just sat down. Like it was really, really peculiar. I was again, I don't remember specifically the timeline, but I think I was out for about 6 months of not really doing much before I just like they kept saying it was a sprained knee, rest it, blah blah blah. Before my dad was pushing on them to get an X-ray and an MRI. I believe the first thing we had was an X-ray, and they came back and said there was some uh, damage to. I can't remember if that was when they originally said there was meniscus damage. Um, and they were like, "These are what your potential options are." But what they did was they sent me to see someone else who was actually a physio in the NHS, who gave me, like, funnily enough, all the usual bandage shit that you get given from, like, no disrespect to the NHS, but like it was fucking useless shit for what was obviously wrong with my knee. But they can only do the best they can do with the information they've been given. So if they think that like I'm recovering from a sprained knee and they're just trying to strengthen the joint, then that's all they can do. Um, and then I think it started to get a little bit better. I was able to do more, obviously, over time. It was at least over a year because I remember by the time that I had ACL reconstruct, so I know I'm dragging this out, but I ended up, the last operation was ACL reconstruct, which I had when I was taking my A levels. So that's how long the whole process eventually took. I did my GCSEs and then was given I can't remember when I got an MRI again, but it was because my dad was pressing on it. I had an MRI and eventually had knee arthroscopy where they did the keyhole surgery. They said that there was damage to the meniscus, and and then when they went in there, they said, "Oh, there's a little bit more damage, so we need to do this test." And I think they gave me another MRI after that actually. And the results were kind of contradictory to what the first one was, if that makes sense. So I was given an MRI. On the notes, it was written, "This is what's wrong, blah, 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 blah." Don't remember specifically. And then I had the initial operation, and they're like, "Oh, actually, we found that this is wrong as well." They also fixed something else in there that I don't remember what it was. I can't remember if it was just like fragments of the knee and stuff like floating around that were, you know, causing a little bit of irritation, inflammation stuff. So I think they said they fixed that as well, and then found there was other issues with it. So after that, I think I obviously went through my recovery again. I think it was like 2 months before I was doing it again. I played a little bit of football whilst was still in and out of the system in the NHS, who were like taking a look at it, blah blah blah, and it still just kept going from underneath me. So I was still going in and being like, "Listen, this isn't fixed. Whatever's gone on, whatever's going on, it's not what it was originally told it was. It's definitely something far worse, far different, blah, blah, blah." And I believe it was still, they were telling me that I've got a sprained knee and that I keep spraining my knee. Again, it was my dad that was pressing on them to take a further look, take a closer look. I had that second MRI and I don't remember specifically what the results said after that. I think that was when they were like, "Oh, it looks like you've torn your ACL," which at this point is hard to say. Did I tear it in the initial injury? Which, knowing what I know now about what he does and things like that, it would kind of make sense that I was changing direction at the time and I got drop kicked in the side of the knee. Or could you say that it wasn't just the initial impact, it was wear and tear from, running around on it afterwards? It's hard to say.
It makes sense though. At the very least, it would have been a partial tear to start with, if not a full.
Yeah.
I think, like overall, looking back at that now, what's your overall thoughts and feelings on it? Because it must have been frustrating. It must have been irritating.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one because for me, I obviously back then in my head I was like, I'm going to be a footballer. I want to be a footballer. That's what I'm going to do. When I had the initial operation, when I suffered the initial injury, going up to having the initial operation, in my head I was kind of like, this is just what happens to people who play a lot of sports. Like people get injured. And then I thought, how many footballers do I know? How many of the people around me playing have had like significant like knee operations and stuff like that? I think what the big psychological thing for me was I couldn't trust my body. So I'd gone from being like extremely athletic, and I don't want to, this is going to come across like quite um big headed, but I was very, very athletic. I would argue way more so than most people my age, mostly because I was competing against you and other people 2 years older than me who were bigger, faster, fitter, stronger, more powerful. And that's what I did. And I kind of that was my identity. I was like, what? I'm an athletic person. I was also quite clever, but I was identified as being the athletic person. I was always winning sports day, always winning sprints. I was one of the best footballers, blah, 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 all that stuff. And then I remember the the biggest thing after the initial injury that I forgot to say about was for some reason there was a block between my brain and my knee. I couldn't go down like slopes. So I could go downstairs, like level changes like that, and I could go up, but going down slopes, like there was just no, the only way I can describe it is there was no trust. I could not trust that my knee was going to be okay going down slopes, which is obviously it's the eccentric loading, etc. But I didn't know anything about that then. I was just like, I don't get it. I just like I'm trying to walk forward. Genuinely, I'm not shitting here as well. It's like trying to walk forward and my knee's not having it. It don't want to do it. Like, so back then, I think I felt very differently to the way I feel about it now. When I turned 15 going on 16, I was obviously doing GCSEs. I was like, shit, this is actually like really, really bad now because I'm missing. I think I'd gone from playing football like 6 or 7 times a week to doing nothing, like watching, which which was kind of good because it makes you really fucking want to play. But keep doing that over a long period of time, that's a lot of development that you're missing out on. And arguably some of the most important development, like at that age, like people are signing pro contracts and things like that or get released. Um, but for me, I'm sat on the sidelines, I'm just watching. Like I've got a pretty serious injury that hasn't yet been identified as a serious injury. It was just at that point in my head, it was just a sprained knee. Nothing really was wrong with it, but it was just taking ages and ages and ages. And 2 weeks turned into 2 years. I remember I had my ACL reconstruction, and then I believe I had it early in the morning. I was out that day. I was really ill from the anesthetic, but I had an A level exam the following day. So I remember going into college to do an A level exam the very, very next day. So it was, I don't want to say stressful because it's not like it was, but it wasn't like stressful. Like, some people are experiencing like serious amounts of stress. But for me, it was like, Jesus Christ, this is really, really infuriating, really frustrating. I couldn't train. I couldn't run. I obviously loved running everywhere, as everyone who's listened to what I used to do as a kid, just fucking running away from family and stuff all the time. I couldn't run. I couldn't do anything. And to be honest, actually, thinking about it now, for the most part, I then spend, and I think you remember, most of my time playing video games.
Mm,
Because what else could I have done?
yeah. What if you were to go through that situation again? What would you do differently, knowing what you know now, just with regards to trying to get your initial treatment in place, not with regards to like lifestyle and stuff around it, but like you, let's say like day one, you rock up to the hospital. Like, are you doing anything differently to what you first did?
Can my answer be go private?
Yeah, if you want. Yeah, if you've
Yeah,
got.
just the only reason I say that though is just to avoid the hassle of being put through the system, which like eventually I got there. I only got there. I only got through the system because of my dad. Like I was a young lad. I wasn't going to be ringing them and being like, listen, this isn't good enough. This is what I need. This is what I need to see. Blah blah blah. I only saw a knee specialist. So the guy that initially took a look at my knee and said it was a sprained knee was just whoever, consultant, whatever, doctor. I don't know. I only saw a knee specialist maybe a year after, because just because the way the system worked and you have to see this person, then this person, and this person. I saw the physio before I saw the knee specialist. Like that doesn't even make sense to me. But yeah, I would go private just to avoid that, especially if I knew what it actually was. Like I had no idea back then. I had no idea about ACL and
Well, I
MC.
mean, that was around the same sort of time that the metatarsal was invented as well, wasn't it? So
Yeah, yeah.
those
But
kind of
I
things.
would do that just to get through, get it done, and then start the recovery process as fast as possible. I have to say that when I had the actual ACL operation, which was obviously 2 years down the line, um, the team that actually worked on me and the actual surgeon was absolutely mint. Like he was genuinely class and he did a good job. What I will say to people is I had a patella tendon graft. So you can get hamstring graft or patella tendon graft, and I think there's another one now anyway. But I had patella tendon graft because he understood that. Well, it was explained to him that I was fast, and he was like, if we take something from your hamstring, and obviously for people that can't see me, if you do know Alex, we have quite well built like legs. Our legs are pretty big. And this surgeon was looking at my legs. He's like, right, well, we definitely I think I can't remember if he said something to me about me being quad dominant or something. Do you remember when that was going around? Quad dominant or hamstring dominant or glute dominant, whatever. What he was saying about, right, well, we definitely don't want to take any of your hamstring because that thing looks like it's under a lot of stress anyway. So we're gonna take from your knee. Which I spoke to Charlie Dewhurst, who's a very good physio and lecturer at UCLan, and she was saying that's generally not what they would do. Normally they would take hamstring. So it's interesting that took patella. Proper looked after me. It was really good. The knee, I must say, I did my recovery really, really well. What I will tell people is it even now. So if I were to in terms like I can change direction, I can still run, I can still produce force, I can still produce power. It's okay. If I were to leave it straight for 5 minutes, it would honestly probably stay in that position for another 2 minutes while I try and unbolt it, if that makes sense. I think after the opera, so I had the operation at the last one, 17, 18. Um, Honestly, I would say it was maybe 7, maybe 8 years. So when I was 25, when I felt like it was like completely safe to do absolutely everything that I'd always been wanting to do. Like before that, it was always, like, will it be okay with that? Will it be okay with this? Still felt a little bit weak, still felt tender, still needed to go and see physios and make sure that it's being properly. I was getting still massages and stuff like that, and that's not just from I know obviously I go to the gym and I train and things like that too, but what I mean is my right leg wasn't having those issues, but it was specifically that left knee was still having issues. So even with very, very good rehabilitation for the best part of 9 months, I think my initial recovery was before I was able to like do things to a higher intensity again. I'm not saying I did, but yeah, I would say 7 years before it felt like, I've forgotten that I had a knee operation
Yeah.
because
I think again part of that problem, the reason that recovery was so slow was because the actual process itself was so delayed before you even started recovering in the first place. So you're always fighting an uphill battle, and your recovery and your comeback time is always going to be longer and more difficult the slower that initial process is. I think with regards to, for anyone who might be going through a similar situation to that, where you're kind of getting told it's one thing and you get sent away and a few weeks later nothing's better, and that kind of stuff. My initial approach in a situation like that, I think, I mean, obviously it's easy because I know, like, if you've knackered your knee or your ankle, or potentially your hip or your shoulder, I generally have a pretty good understanding of what should happen in terms of range of movement and the way that the joint mechanics work, and then also what shouldn't happen. So, like, if you went into the hospital with your knee, if I was with you and I saw them, just poke it and have a feel, and then yeah, you got a sprained knee, I'd be like, bro, where's the joint stress test? Are you not going to actually manipulate it and see if all the ligaments are intact first? And from that, I mean, you can pretty easily tell if an ACL is knackered because the shin will actually shift forwards and backwards. You've got a really clear indicator as to go, okay, there's a bit missing now. We should probably go and take a look at that. And I think that's the next step, is to insist on some sort of imaging. Always, X-ray is always going to be the easiest option first off, in terms of availability. So they could wheel you through there, no problem, get you an X-ray done, in and out, have a reading of it, understand what's going on. And then beyond that, especially if it's ligament, tendon related, 100% insist on an MRI. Like, speak to the doctors about that. Speak to them about that, about the possibility of getting an MRI sorted, and do it as soon as possible. Especially if you're a young kid, you need to get this fixed at the earliest opportunity, and don't allow the system to kind of push you around from one person to the next, where the appointment is, months apart, or it's okay, come back and see us if it's not better in 2 months. Like, don't allow that to happen. Keep fighting your corner, stand up to it, and insist on having the imaging done. Other than that, I mean, I know places where I've sent footballers to go and get joints scanned in an MRI, and obviously you have to pay for it, but I think it was like maybe 150, 200 quid, maybe a little bit more. But for that, you get it scanned, you can get it read by someone, and then you understand the problem that you're dealing with. And as soon as you understand the problem, you can then take the appropriate steps to try and fix it. But until you have that clear picture, you're always going to struggle. You're always going to find it difficult. So you need to
I
know.
think I would also say, like, if there's an issue going on with one of your joints, one of the things I always think now is like, obviously you need to get it checked out, etc. But the way that I view not the NHS specifically, but medical services and stuff like that, like doctors and GPs and things like that, they're experts of medicine and whatever they've doctored in. Like, I would speak to someone who knows about joints and about muscles, like someone that I trusted. If I thought I had a muscle injury, I would speak to someone who knows a lot about musculature, etc. If I had a joint injury, I would speak to someone who knows about joints. If I needed medicine, I would go and get some fucking medicine. Like,
Yeah,
that
don't
is
don't yeah, don't go to your GP. Like, when the initial trauma happens, don't go to your GP. Go to A&E. If it's a bad one, it's a bad one. If you can see that it's displaced and it's most likely broken, it's probably broken. Go straight to A&E. Other
yeah.
than that, if it's potential muscle or joint, go to a physio, see what their opinion is, and then potentially get yourself into a hospital there and then insist on, like, if you sometimes you can get notes and letters from the physio, and they'll be able to say, right, give this to your doctor, or they'll give the note to your GP for your GP to then sign off, right, you can go and get scanned and they can put you in the system that way. But
I also think as well in relation to the system, but I think always make sure you've got access to the notes and to what's been said because there's always errors in communication. I know what one between two or three appointments that I ended up having to
did,
go in
didn't
that.
didn't they draw an arrow on the wrong leg?
Yeah. Yeah. So when I went in for the ACL reconstruct, the nurse drew an arrow on my right leg. And this was at pre-op. I'm like, why have you done that? And she went, what, is that not the leg that you're having an operation on? Like sarcastically. And I was like, no. It says left knee here. And I'm like, yeah, that's my right.
Fucking hell.
So obviously just make sure that you're on top of that, but make sure you're on top of the notes that and the communication being exchanged because as difficult as the process was, a lot of them are really, really good and are really helpful. And one of them, all it takes is for you to go, okay, this is actually what I've been told. These are what the notes are, but this is what I've noticed. And one of them who knows what they're doing will go, but that's fucking stupid. If I'd have said to the second person, yeah, all the guy did to test my knee was just squish the shield on the front. Like he didn't like try pulling my heel towards my bum. Like he didn't do anything. Like he was just like little touch. And then probably like, oh right, okay. Like it would make things very, very different. But I didn't do that back then. But if you're going through it, maybe do that.
So there you go. There's your advice. If you're going through a bit of a shit time with an injury or a serious joint issue at the minute, that's the way to go about it. Go and get it seen, find out exactly what you're dealing with, go and speak to the experts in that particular field, and be forceful and insistent on getting through to the next steps of your treatment. Because if you do that, you've got a fighting chance.
Yeah, you have to take it very, very seriously. If you are someone who is an athlete or you want to be an athlete, that's how serious you need to make it. You need to make it like, listen, this is my life and this is my career. Because in reality, it is. And if you've got something as serious as an ACL injury and you end up being out for 2 years, like you're 2 years behind, like you might never get to the level that you were going to get to. Like it has to be that important. And unfortunately, it will not be that important to the people that are trying to look after you. It's not that they don't give a shit, but they're busy. Like you have to make it priority and make it a priority for them as well.
So again, all that stuff particularly useful and probably even more important if you're a young kid or if you know, yeah, if you're a youngster playing sport with aspirations to go to a high level, you need to get things dealt with as soon as possible. I think we are getting much, much better at treating things, but with the state the NHS is in, it might be better to go down your own route and pursue treatment on your own terms. Just saying. Because I think, yeah, the last thing you need is the disruption, the stress, the irritation, the anxiety of things going wrong, getting pushed around from pillar to post, and just not necessarily being dealt with or handled in the right way by people who are under immense pressure and stress and fatigue. So,
Can I just, I've completely forgotten, probably a key part to that story is the actual ACL reconstruct, the big operation, which was the one that I needed and the one that I eventually got that, helped me on the path to recovery. I got a phone call on Monday at, oh, no, sorry, on Friday at 2 p.m. Can't remember what specifically the date was, saying from my dad, saying, okay, so I've spoken to him and this is the case, blah, 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 blah. They have now said, so I was on this, I don't know if it was a wait list or whatever. He was like, they've now said that they can fit you in on Monday at whatever time in the morning, or it's going to be like, I can't remember, 3 months after that. So it was kind of like you either go and get it done on Monday or you're waiting at least a few months, which I know doesn't sound like a lot, but it's kind of like a big thing to make a choice on when you're. I know it sounds obvious, well, I'll do it on Monday, but you don't think, oh well, that's obvious, I'll do it on Monday. It's like, holy shit, Right, okay. So I got 2 days and then I'm having an operation. Right. Okay. So you kind of have to think about it. Which goes without saying. Anyway, I did it. I did it on the Monday. But that's what it had got to. It had got to my dad obviously fighting with them over and over and over and over to eventually, okay, we can see you tomorrow. It wasn't tomorrow, it was 2 days after, or in like 8 years' time. So be prepared for that one.
Get it done as soon as possible. Keep forcing it through. Be insistent. Be annoying. Bear in mind, like if you have got a serious injury like that, that's what the NHS and hospitals are there for, not for minor injuries, minor burns. I remember when I went in with my leg kind of all plastered up the day after I'd completely ruined my ankle. Sat in the waiting room, fire alarm was going off. There's people crowded in there. There was this young Asian lad bumped past me and just knocked my leg whilst it was resting and elevated on a thing. And he was, no, it wasn't even on a thing. It was elevated out in front of me on the floor because I had to keep it straight. And he just walked past and just clipped it. And he was like, oh, sorry. I'm like, you fuck, I wanted to knock him out. I wanted to kill him with my crutch. And obviously, like I mentioned, the fire alarm was going off. There was a, I'm talking big fat woman, massive fat woman. She clearly burnt herself on the deep fat fryer. She's got a little burn on her arm that you think like there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. Go home, put it under some cold water, get some ice on it, whatever you want to do. You don't need to be in hospital with that. She went, why does he get to go in? All I need's a bandage. It's like, go to Boots, go to the pharmacy and get yourself a little bandage and fuck off. And
That's
yeah,
true.
just people like that. Stop wasting people's time. If you only need something small, like piss off and deal with it yourself. And like, oh, actually, whilst I was there, I don't know if I told you this, they called me through for the second time. So I went through the first time, spoke to someone. They were like, go back out. We're going to go and get the surgeon. He's going to come down and speak to you. I was like, oh, fuck's sake. Yeah, because that was after I'd been told I was going to most likely have an operation. So I went back out, waited in the waiting room. Fire alarm is still going off. They called me through for the second time. And at this point, my leg is like throbbing. It's so sore. It's sore. It's going like purple and blue along my toes. I was in a lot of pain. No, I'd got no painkillers. And I tried to stand up. And as I stood up, one of my crutches slipped and I fell into the bin next to the door. I actually fell over. And there's like everyone in the waiting room was like, "Ugh!" And I don't like making a big song and dance about anything. So I was so embarrassed. I was like, no, don't look at me, anybody. And like, I was like, just let me stand up and let me put the bin back and let me get on with it. But everyone's like making a fuss. And yeah, I felt like a proper dependent at that point. It wasn't nice. I hated that feeling.
Yeah, no, not fun.
Um, so yeah, like if you are struggling through a situation like that, good luck. Hope you get it sorted. Please don't allow yourself to be pushed around and told one thing or another. Like insist on the correct pathway of treatment and just keep forcing the issue. Try and get yourself seen to by the specialists, the right people, the people in the know, and the people with the power to actually do something about it. I hope this like was probably a slightly different episode today, but we are going to wrap it up there. We will go through the questions that we've got next time out. So just to give you an idea of what you can look forward to, we've got things on like this. How can I improve my overall athletic performance? Big question that, which is why we're moving on and we're leaving it for today. We've also got what types of exercise should I focus on to enhance my performance in sport? How do I increase my power and explosiveness? And much, much more. So we will be delving deeper into that in the next podcast episode. Until then, please share it with anyone who you might find it interesting, anyone who you feel like is actually struggling or has a bit of an injury or needs this bit of experience in their ears about how to deal with the situation. Please share the episode. And we look forward to having you back again for more. And until next time, enjoy the Euros. Let's hope England keep winning. We'll be probably either celebrating or complaining at this time next week when we're back. But yeah, enjoy yourselves, enjoy the football, and stay fit, stay healthy. That is it from me, Lenko, out.